We're happy to have two very experienced and knowledgeable project experts with us today. Our guest industry expert, Sarah Simpson, joins us from Denver. Sarah is a process engineer and engineering manager at AECOM and worked as the interface manager for the large Alberta oil sands project at URS. Sarah is a registered professional engineer and also has an MBA. She has experience in various industries, including the U.S. Department of Defense work, the U.S. Department of Energy work, the NASA Space Program, air quality control for power plant systems, oil and gas processing, as well as mining. We also have Kelly Maloney, Senior Product Manager for CoreWorks for Interface Management. She brings over 20 years of experience with enterprise software applications for project management and information management. Kelly has worked with some of the largest CPCs and owner-operators to implement interface management solutions that service multi-billion-dollar projects with thousands of interfaces. Together, Sarah and Kelly will discuss a contractor's interface management responsibilities, and Kelly will demonstrate key CoreWorks interface management features developed specifically to help contractors with interface management. With that, I will turn it over to you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresina. I'm going to start today with a little bit of background about CoreWorks. CoreWorks is a software company that builds integrated information management solutions for engineering and construction projects. Our core platform, Project Information Control, supports integration across the major ECM areas, including document management, workflow, and collaboration. We focus on key areas in business processes that manage risk and promote project execution. And we do this through information sharing and automating the business processes that connect teams and keep project stakeholders informed. CoreWorks is used around the world across many industries. Using our software, companies can improve project execution by supplying their teams with the tools needed to manage project information, exchange data, and collaborate to ensure success. Building on our Project Information Control platform, we have provided a series of integrated applications that provide business value to all functional teams. These additional products, such as requests for information, change management, and interface management, are all modular or add-ons to the main product, Project Information Control. And these add-on products address key areas of business practice for executing major capital projects. With that said, I'd like to hand it over to Sarah. As Teresina mentioned, Sarah has worked on a large oil sands project in Alberta. And what was unique about this project was that it was the first project this company had used a formal interface management solution on, and this decision was driven by a formal assessment of the projects which identified key risks, and interface management was found to be one of the top 10 risks overall to the company. I was very fortunate to work very closely with Sarah and the rest of the team, learned a lot, and was able to take their feedback and incorporate it into our solution. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Kelly. Putting this presentation together, we wanted to focus on a couple of challenges that hopefully every contractor organization has faced. It shouldn't be too hard for anyone in this webinar to understand that our industry faces a lot of challenges. Just some of those include increased competition, different expectations by operators, and rapid time to market. We're going to address some of those items here and talk about some of the items that can help us solve those issues as we face some of these very large, complex projects. Whether you've got just project turnover due to people finding other projects or other companies to work for, or even just in complex projects where you may have an EPC contract and you want to change people out of your interface management as the project progresses, it's important to have or to understand that there is going to be employee turnover on your project. This also can increase budgets as you have to train for those people to come in and understand where you are within the project and get caught up to speed very quickly. Sometimes there's a lack of clear understanding of requirements and understanding who the true stakeholders and decision makers are within complex project teams. And finally, time to market is important for every single one of us, whether or not it's high stock prices or a new unique design that's going into the market. Schedules are always being pressed, and sometimes we experience inadequate planning in order to achieve those projects. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a software tool that would help us with some of these items? Next one. So what would we look for in that software tool? Well, first of all, it would be really great if it was easy to use. Thinking back about how we're going to get people up and running and effectively very quickly on our projects, it's important to have a tool that's easy to use and that you're not dependent on one or two individuals within that project team just in case they do find another opportunity. Secondly, it's important to have a clear audit history and flexible reporting. How many times are we looking for history in years-old emails and thinking back on who sent us a particular item or doing searches in historical files or even sent items to try to find the history of a certain item and what the decisions were? It would be great if we could have a software tool that would provide us with that audit history at just a couple of clicks. And finally, something that can provide clear requirements and timely responses to requests and changes. Again, with complex projects and oftentimes staggering approaches to having contracts awarded, it's very important to keep in mind that you may be in a different place in your schedule than somebody else that you have to communicate with. By having the ability to set clear requirements and deadlines really helps the project understand where its critical measures are and can help the project succeed overall. On to the next slide. Typically, interface management is run by Excel spreadsheets. In fact, in the large interface project that Kelly mentioned we worked on, for about the first year of the project, we worked with Excel spreadsheets. And while they were efficient, they were easy to use, and everyone on the project had Excel, they could open up the files, there were quite a few shortfalls that we noticed early on. Just a couple of those are mentioned below. We quickly realized that there were certain contractors where they would only use our regularly scheduled interface meetings to even open up the Excel spreadsheet. They would forget to status, or we would be sending around multiple Excel spreadsheets, each one would provide updates on their copy, and trying to pull it all back together really became a configuration nightmare. Also, when you have complicated multi-party engagements, it's very difficult to do it with one spreadsheet, or that spreadsheet becomes so overburdensome and cumbersome that it's really difficult to manage, and it can easily become corrupted. So in the project that Kelly and I worked on, we quickly decided that Excel was not the right tool for us, and we had to go with something a little bit more robust. So let's first talk about the ease of use of the tool. We wanted to reduce risk. Again, with the Excel spreadsheet, information is not real time. It's very important with the pace of our projects today that we have the ability to update real time, to review real time, and to make updates and share with our teams. It's also very important to have consistent formatting. Again, thinking back to employee turnover and just finding information maybe years down the road. If you know exactly how everything is formatted, it's very easy to do searches and find your information quickly. Second of all, we want to prevent human error. Every technology has the availability for potential human error, but we want to reduce the impact of that human error and allow for things to develop and make sure that we receive the input from all and keep that audit history and be able to go back to it in time and figure out why things happened the way that they did. And finally, to increase performance, All of that information is historical. Our team is truly productive when you're able to pull information from the tool and send it around to your project team easily. Kelly is going to provide a demonstration in just a couple of moments, and we'll have the ability to look at some of the reporting structures that are already embedded within the CoreWorks tool. On the oil sands project that we worked on, it was quite common to print off various reports from the CoreWorks tool and hang them on the wall outside the office so that everyone on the project could walk by and very quickly status where some of their important features were, or identify things that they owed to others in order to progress the design. This really made it a true team effort and got everyone involved in the project and made it owned by the entire team. Next slide. Now, when we think about audit histories and ensuring that we've got the input from all involved, there are a couple of items to think about. Interface management is typically referred to as a project management role within the team. Therefore, you usually have to report both internally to your executive management team and externally to your clients. Things like project metrics, milestones are very important as to how you're performing and where potential issues may arise. It's also important to note that this is not open to personal interpretation. How many times have we received an email that says, everything's going great? You know, we have a few minor problems, but don't worry about it. I'm working on them diligently. Only to find out that those minor problems resulted in a schedule that was 6 months delayed and 10% over budget. Personal interpretation is very easy to allow within our project teams, especially with people who are trying to protect their careers. By having hard facts and being able to share those readily with others, you avoid all of that interpretation issue and really get down to where things are going well and where you might have to put a little extra effort. Finally, data is readily accessible and easy to input and digest. And again, we're going to talk about some of the reporting features that are included in just a moment. When we talk about timely responses and making sure that our projects are completed on time, this is quite important from the contractor perspective. We want to ensure design consistently and perhaps most importantly, reduce the rework and get it done right the first time. While this is quite important for the contractor, it's also very important for the bottom line of the project, and it's going to make your clients and your owner very happy when we meet deadlines and commitments. By using the tool, it's very easy to see where you need to put your energy, where things might be overdue or are coming up very quickly. It also provides a great aspect for allowing you to let your owner know where they may need to kind of help you manage a different contractor or provide some input for very critical or complex issues within the project. Again, it takes out that personal interpretation issue and can really provide some hard numbers behind where the project is. On to the next one, Kelly. Oh, now Kelly is going to provide a demonstration of the CoreWorks tool.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. It was really great to hear, some of your experiences and challenges of managing interfaces with Excel spreadsheets, and really gave us something to think about. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm going to jump into a product demonstration now, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the concepts and key features that Sarah mentioned are really, really important to an EPC. Okay, so ease of use is something that's very important in any tool, very important to any type of user. EPCs in particular are often required to work with many different types of systems that are imposed or dictated by the client. Therefore, it's very important that the tools be easy to use, that they enable easy transition to other individuals as people come and go on a project, and that they can help reduce risk by helping to support the teams in getting the job done rather than act as a hindrance. So I'm going to talk a little bit here about how technology can help reduce human error. I'm going to log on to CoreWorks as Robert. Robert is my contractor, primarily responsible for a scope of work on this project. And the first thing that a tool is going to provide for you is that secure authentication and authorization. So when your users log on to the system is going to control based on permissions that you've granted what they have access to, what documents they can have visibility to, and the key features that are available to them. The other very important part of any user interface is it must be intuitive. It must be easy to use and intuitive to your end users. Here you see our interface management landing page. Within the interface management application, we have various submenus that are available to users. New request is the ability to raise a new interface document in the system. We have the search ability to search the online register and various other submenus that provide various functionality to the user. But what is nice about this is it provides a dashboard from which the user can access all of the features and functionality within the system. I'm going to start by taking a look at one of the electronic forms, our interface point form. Interface points are used to define that scope split between contract boundaries. But I want to focus not so much on the use of an interface point form, but what the form looks like and how users will be able to be efficient in creating these documents within the system. The first thing I want to point out is the gray fields that you see along the top and along the side of the form there. Those fields are system generated. So at any time that you can when you're implementing the system, you should be looking for the ability for the system to auto-generate fields. Especially important will be the key dates that we see here along the right side of the form. You no longer have to rely on human entering text and data into emails or spreadsheets and possibly getting the information wrong. The other key component to this is that the format of the date is consistent across the entire project. So everybody's working under the same format of date, so there's no confusion there with regard to dates. The other thing that's very important here is required fields. So as you can see on my form, I have a few fields here that are marked with a red asterisk. Those are required fields, and they're really great in helping to ensure that you get the right content, that you're capturing the right data for each and every interface. So you have that consistency, and you're really eliminating any ambiguity around the request that's being made, and also reducing that back and forth that's very common when you're trying to manage interfaces with emails or spreadsheets. The required fields are going to ensure that you get the information you need on the initial request. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in a common interface point title there. The other thing I wanted to point out in addition to the required fields is that you can make fields pick list values. So as you can see here from my phase, I have the various phase values that this project is using for interface management. So I'm going to start off with detailed design. Again, with disciplines, the disciplines are provided and configurable for each project, so the discipline values can be unique across projects. And then same for our system, our area, and our system. All right, so very easy to complete and fill out the form. The other thing that's very important in any interface management program is the ability to identify your interface matrix. So you want to ensure that the right people are communicating with each other, that you have the ability to understand who it is that you need to interface with throughout the project lifecycle, and also the interfaces that you're communicating with them. To do that, we have the ability to identify interface points by scope package. So these are going to identify the two scopes of work where this particular interface crosses those boundaries, crosses those contract boundaries. And again, this list can be considered a smart list, in that you can configure it to only display those other packages that the particular logged in user is interfacing with. I'm going to go ahead and pick SRU and Utilities, which has been awarded to Flanagan Construction, which the interface manager is Robert, and this particular interface is with the Inlet and Gas Processing Facility. So you can see we've identified the parties to this interface and the interface managers that are responsible for managing that interface. And basically that's it. I've provided the information that I need on this form. If I just scroll down a little bit here to the bottom, There's an area for comments. Again, that leads to clarity. So anytime you're updating a document in CoreWorks or raising a new interface agreement, the more information you can provide to the person receiving that request, the better. So I'm going to say, please confirm acceptance of new interface. And the reason I say new is because very often the interface points that are created for a project are identified during FEED. So by the time the EPC contractors are in working the system, managing their interfaces, these interface points are typically identified up front, but it certainly doesn't mean that additional interfaces won't be identified during the project execution phases. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit here now. And what's going to happen is that the CoreWorks workflow engine is going to pick this document up. It's going to route it to the right individuals for review and approval. If you're on the distribution list, you're going to be notified that a new interface point is created. This is very important for scope managers and other parties that are involved in managing interfaces and managing scope. So that's all very important in a technology tool, is that you have the ability to have an automated workflow that can route documents for the appropriate reviews and approvals, again, without having to depend on that human intervention or that human decision of, who should this email go to or who should I CC on this particular email, because more often than not, you do not include all the people that should be kept informed. The other very important thing in a technology tool and in managing the large volumes of documents and communication exchange that needs to happen on projects that we work on is the ability to locate documents quickly. So I'm going to jump over to the search page here. And this search page provides users the ability to search the online register. So this is basically what would replace your Excel spreadsheet. You have the ability, as you can see here, to filter your search results. So I can say, well, I'm really only interested in looking for interfaces for the SRU and utilities package. And maybe I want to further filter my search results by the discipline. So I'm going to select piping, and I'm going to go ahead and execute my search. So as you can see, I received, I have a results list returned, which shows me all of the interfaces that are currently in the system for the SRU and utilities package that are identified as a piping discipline. The search results includes a lot of key information related to each interface. I have the title, key dates are displayed, the status of the document is displayed, the document number. So you get a lot of information, and this is typically the information that you would see in a common Excel spreadsheet. Who are the parties involved? What's the date that the interface issue was raised? When was it responded to? That type of information is provided in the search results here. The other important thing to point out here is that we have this actions column here, and this again is helping to guide the user, helping them to limit mistakes that they could potentially make. And how we do that is that for a selected document in the register, we're only going to display the actions that are available to that logged in user. So does this user have the ability to update this document? Does the user have the ability to raise an interface agreement for this interface? So that information is predetermined based on the permissions that are granted to the user and to the user's role membership and the contracting party that they're working for that are participating on the project. So again, this is greatly leads to the reduction of potential human error in that we're going to kind of guide the user as to what they can and cannot do based on the status of the document and the permissions they've been granted. The other very sort of key feature is the ability to export documents. So you want to be able to take your results list and possibly export them. So CoreWorks also provides the ability to export the contents of your search results in either a PDF booklet format or in an Excel format. And that's very handy if you need to take this information to a meeting, or possibly you need to export the information in PDF to include in a report. The other thing important to a user interface is the ability to access key features from wherever you are within the system. A good example of that is the ability to raise an interface agreement. So we have our new request menu where you can raise an interface agreement or query within the system. And also you have the ability, when you have an interface selected, you have the ability to click on this icon here to create an interface agreement. So again, providing that flexibility to your users and the ability to initiate key features from various locations is very important and will lead to their ultimate efficiency and use of the tool. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on the icon there to create an interface agreement. My form is opened, and this is probably the bulk of what your users will use and what the EPCs will use throughout the system is the raising and responding to interface agreements. So this is a tool that they use to collaborate and communicate to ensure they get that successful design and that design consistency that Sarah was referring to earlier. As you can see, this looks very similar to our interface point form. We have the gray fields, again, which will be system generated. Always very useful in any kind of technology tool to limit and reduce that human error. And in addition, you can see that when I open this form, a lot of those key fields are already populated for me. That's because we're inheriting those fields from the parent document. So this really leads to ease of use, efficiency. There's a lot less fields that I have to complete on this form, and the overall adoption of the tool. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my title. It's a required field. All right, so I've got my title there. And I need to go down and select a need date. So this is the initial ask. I'm asking that this information be provided to me by, we'll select the end of April. Short description, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here and copy my information from my title into my short description. All right, with the fields completed, my next step is basically to go ahead and submit the document. Again, comments, always very important. Please provide requested information, and I'm going to go ahead and submit. Now what I'm doing here, you may have noticed, I purposely left my responding party blank. I'm trying to demonstrate the fact that technology can also introduce validation. So here we see that the interface manager, I have an error message at the top of my form, and I realize, oh, okay, I forgot to provide some information that was required. So I'm the requester of this information, but I do have to indicate who the responding party is and who I'm looking for that information from. I've been talking about the interface agreement form here and how we can pre-populate fields, how technology can also support validation and prompts and reminders to the user when they're filling out forms. Again, that all leads to ease of use, getting adoption, right? People are going to use what's easy to use. If it's difficult, they won't use it. So the ability that we provided here with this interface agreement form and pre-populating fields and validation is going to lead to greater adoption and use of the system. So the validation error that I received here was that my interface manager, responding party was missing. So I'm going to go ahead and select the party that I'm requesting this information of. Again, based on the interface matrix that you develop for your project, the list of responders and who I'm able to communicate with can be filtered, which is another great valuable tool. I'm going to go ahead and select applied materials, and the interface manager I want to collaborate with for this point is OM Bender. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and resubmit this request, and validation at this point should pass, and the document becomes part of the official register. Again, through the workflow engine, we're going to support routing it for the proper reviews and approvals. Notifications can be sent. And what's really important here is that these may seem like, simple features that we're discussing and that I'm demonstrating here, but they can have a very huge impact on the success of your interface program. The other thing that Sarah talked about was the importance of an audit trail and reporting. We all know that that is very important. It's important for EPCs. It's important for the owner-operators. So one of the things that we provide through CoreWorks is the ability to have an audit trail for every interface document in your register, as well as an overall project audit trail where you can get a little more granular in actually identifying, who made what change to what field when. So it can be a very granular type audit record that you can generate from the CoreWorks system. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just change my search query here, and I'm going to search for an interface agreement that can demonstrate some of the audit capabilities within the system. All right, so I've executed my search here. You may have noticed I used a combination of the pick list values and the keyword search there to really narrow down my results. I have 2 documents that were returned that match the results that I entered, and so this is a document here that I'm interested in, so I'm going to open that up. So the form is open. This should look familiar to everyone now. It's a bit more completed form. Some of the key dates have been populated. If I scroll down, we have our description, and here we have the history grid. So the history grid is a very detailed history, and this is a history of this particular interface agreement. So it shows you when the request was first initiated. It shows you all the people who had a part in reviewing the request and responding to the request. Very detailed. We can see right down to the point where a particular interface manager forwarded the request to one of his discipline leads or technical contacts for a response. And then the fact that that individual issued a clarify response. So the response was received, yet there was either some issues with the response, or the response was unclear. So the request was sent back to the responding party to clarify that response. And we can see that they did clarify the response, and then it's now sitting in, actually in my logged in users in Robert's inbox, and it's awaiting his action. So the audit trail is very, very clear. Ownership, current ownership is very obvious. You can see who is currently responsible for completing a task related to this interface agreement. And you have the audit trail that shows when a task was received by an individual, the date and time, and when they actually completed the task. The other thing that helps with interface agreements and audit trails and reporting, and Sarah touched on this as well when she talked about user turnover, is the comments to date section. So this is our cumulative set of comments that are captured on every interface agreement as it goes through its life cycle. So again, very valuable to a user who is just coming onto the project to get them up to speed on the decisions that have been made for this particular interface agreement, all the various discussions that occurred during interface meetings up to this point. All of that information can be captured in the comments field. The other feature that I wanted to touch on is the ability to reassign tasks. Again, this goes to ease of use. It goes to ensuring that you can handle transitioning to other individuals. So within the CoreWorks application, we have the ability to reassign tasks to other individuals. This is very useful not only for user turnover, but also potentially if you have somebody that is going to be unexpectedly away from the office for a period of time. Their manager has the ability to go into CoreWorks and reassign any of their tasks to another individual that can handle it in their absence. So I'm on the home page. What we're looking at here, my work items is my inbox, my CoreWorks inbox. This is where I will receive, the tasks and notifications that I need to respond to. And if I scroll down here, we have this other area on this dashboard page called Work Items Manager View. And as you can see here, I have 2 direct reports, or 2 individuals that are working with me and supporting, our efforts in interface management. I have Tess and Tony. And what I can do is I can actually look at the tasks that have been assigned to Tess, and if I need to, I have the ability to reassign them. So I simply select the item, click reassign, and then select the individual who I'm going to reassign the task to. So this is very useful for, again, both for user turnover and for when people are out of the office, for an unexpected period of time. The other thing that's also, of course, very important is reporting. Sarah mentioned that EPCs are required to report internally to their own management team to report back progress and status of interfaces, and as well as certainly upwards to the client or the owner, of how they're progressing and how things are going. And there's little room for interpretation. We have a very visual graphical dashboard here that reports back on progress. We use the red, yellow, green indicators that are very, universally known to everybody. You certainly don't want to be in the red when you're reporting back to the owner on progress. Probably the most useful report that we see here on this page is our Interface Agreement Early Warning. This is useful to both EPCs and to the owner or PMT managing the project. This gives you a visual on how you're progressing with regards to closing out your interface agreements. So we see those that are closed, those that are in progress, those that are coming due in the next 60 days, which helps you manage, as a contractor on the project, this will help you manage your upcoming workload to ensure that you can get those tasks done and completed in time. And then, of course, the overdue bucket of potential, interface agreements that are overdue. If I click on any one of these, bars in this report, what it gives me the ability to do is drill down. So I have the ability to drill down to details. So now I'm looking at those interfaces by discipline. I have quite a few in the piping interface that are overdue, so I can drill down again. And then, of course, the final takes me to the actual details. I've worked with projects, Sarah's project was one of them, where they would use these reports during online meetings with the other contractors. Because as we know, that the EPCs that are participating on a project are not in the same city or even the same country. So being able to pull up this information and discuss each and every interface with your interfacing party is very valuable. And of course, we provide the ability to export into Excel or PDF. So again, very, very intuitive, very easy to use, and very powerful information really at your fingertips. The final thing I want to cover quickly here, and maybe this is, we saved the best for last and the most important, is clear requirements and timely responses. That's probably the most important requirement for any EPC participating on a project doing interface management. So if I go to the search page, I'm just going to show you some of the methods and ways that we help add clarity to managing interfaces. So we have 3 ways. One is that we were the first to introduce the interface point model. That's where you've got interface points clearly defined in your register that provide additional clarity and guidance to the EPCs that are managing them. So I'm just going to pull one interface up here. We're going to take a look at it. I'm going to enter my keyword search. Keyword search, you can put in a word, a phrase, a doc number, so it's a very powerful Google-like search capability. So I've quickly located the document that I want to take a look at. I'm just going to open this one up. So the interface point itself provides clarity and direction. In addition to describing the particular interface and the parties that are responsible for that interface, we can also provide additional scope in the scope fields that you see here, providing additional. This provides additional clarity to the contractors as who's providing, what types of equipment and procurement and even construction activities or pre-construction activities can be identified in this scope field. In addition, we have a unique feature within CoreWorks that allows us to link or integrate interfaces, selected interfaces, with documents that just further describe the interface. So these can, again, leads to clarity and understanding of requirements. So we have here our piping interface. So this is a document that's describing this valve interface to the EPCs. And as you can see here, this document, often these documents describing the interface type can provide a diagram, and it can also provide more direction to the contractors that are participating or managing that particular interface. So again, just leading to clear requirements, clear understanding of what the roles and responsibilities are at a particular interface. And the final thing is timely responses. As an EPC collaborating with other EPCs on the project, you're going to be at times the requester of information, and at other times you will be the provider. In either case, it's important that you receive the response in a timely fashion. CoreWorks has built into its application and built into the workflow engine a concept of an acceptance of an agreement. This is very unique and new to many. Typically you create an email, or you put a new line item in your Excel sheet, and that gets discussed at the next meeting, or you send the email off and you hope that you'll receive a response. In CoreWorks, when you raise an interface agreement, the response is sent, or the request is sent to the provider, and they have a configurable amount of days to provide an acknowledgement or acceptance of that request. And really what that does is it's just our way in the system to prevent the black holes where you raise an interface agreement and you hope that, well, in 2 months I'm going to receive the response to that interface agreement. So we have built into the workflow engine the alerts and notifications to ensure that once an agreement is raised, it gets acknowledged within a certain time period. And then, of course, the response is provided on or before the need date. So we manage that through the workflow, and we also have the ability to manage that through reports. So going to the reports page within CoreWorks, I can go to the interface agreement late acceptance report and execute this report. Now, with any report in CoreWorks, you have the ability to filter your report results. So again, I'm the SRU and utilities contractor. I'm going to just focus on any interface agreement that I've raised in the system that has is considered late for acceptance. As you can see, I do have the ability to further filter the report by area, system, or discipline, or even a specific contractor that I'm working with. So the report is returned, and as you can see, I have a total of 13 interface agreements which are considered late for acceptance. Again, this is a very valuable tool to bring to my interface meeting. I can report on this if I wanted to. I could export to Excel or PDF, raise it up with my manager, raise it up with the project owner, and get some action taken on these interface agreements that are considered late for acceptance. That's kind of the first step in ensuring that you get a timely response to your interface agreements that you raise in the system. You out of the session, and that you, if you have any questions, I'm going to hand it over to Teresina now. She will open it up, and we can answer some of the questions that may have come in.
So we've got about 5 minutes here, and we do have a few questions that have come in. I'll give you guys all another minute if you have any more questions you'd like to type into the Q&A. I also wanted to mention the events that we have coming up. I guess there's a lag, and the event slide was just loading up right now. So I'll just tell you, we do have part 2 and part 3 of this series coming up. March 8th, we have our key interface management features for owners, and on April 12th, on March 8th, we have project management team features, and on the 12th of April, we have our features for owners. So we'll send out the link for you to register for that as well. We also have our Project Excellence event coming up in Houston on April 20th. More details to follow if you live in that area. So with that, I'll just try to get to a couple of the questions here. I'm not sure if you're all hearing me, but we'll do our best, and we will send out these answers in our email to you as well. Bob asks, my experience is that the owner must drive the adoption of interface software. Can the contractors drive the use of CoreWorks interface software?
I will answer that question. Bob, thank you very much. It is typically something that your owner would drive to the project team, but there have been even just a couple of recent proposals that we've worked on where we, as the contractor, suggested adopting CoreWorks as the interface tool, if not for the entire project, at least the portion that we would manage. Perhaps Kelly can also comment on this, but it's my understanding that even if the contractor owns, the rights to the software, they can kind of piggyback it to the rest of the folks who are on the project. So say even though contractor A had a contract with CoreWorks to provide it, the owner could take full advantage of that and offer it to the rest of the folks on the project if that was something that they wanted to take on. But just with our experience with the Excel spreadsheets and kind of the shortcomings that we saw from that, we have actually proposed it in some of our proposals for the owner to consider.
Thank you, Sarah. Bob, just let us know if that didn't answer your question, and we'll be happy to get back to you after the webinar. We do have a couple of other questions here. We've got about 2 minutes left. Kevin asks, can my subcontractors access this? Will they see everything I see?
Hey, Terzine, I can answer that question. The software tool does support it. We have the ability to support, collaboration between what we could call the primary EPCs on a project, and also support the confidentiality and visual transparency or visibility at the subcontractor level. And based on that confidentiality and security model that we have implemented, a primary EPC working with the subs could limit access and visibility at that level, and so on, working up the tree. So it is possible to bring your subcontractors in the system. And we also have, major EPCs that are managing their project scope and working with the tool, similar to how an owner would work with a EPC or a set of EPCs. They would be facilitating their scope of work and interface management with their subcontractors. So either model is available and supported within the tool.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And we're experiencing some ongoing technical issues here. So I think what we'll do is we do have a few great questions here. So we will email them and send you guys the answers. And if you need any more information, we're happy to provide that to you after the webinar. Again, a big thank you to Sarah, who's joined us from Denver at AECOM. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. And thank you all for joining us and for your patience during this call. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.